Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening, depending on where in the world you're joining from. Thank you so much for joining us today for this important webinar and presentation. My name is Zunaira Ali, and I'm part of the Making Sense team here in Washington, D.C., and it's a pleasure to have you all join us today. We will start off with an introduction of our YouthLead platform and also our YouthLead Ambassador program. Launched in 2018 under the USAID-funded project Youth Power Learning, YouthLead.org is designed for young changemakers who are making a positive impact in their community through service, activism, advocacy, education, and entrepreneurship. Part of the YouthLead is the YouthLead Ambassador Program, which is an 18-month professional development and leadership opportunity for young changemakers with a proven track record in mobilizing other young people to have a positive impact in their community. Currently, we have our fourth cohort of YouthLead ambassadors from all over the world who are serving with us right now. Two of them will be presenting their project on youth, biodiversity, and climate myths today, and they will run you through their presentation. I'm happy to introduce Njoke and Woody, who will be doing their presentation today, and I will hand it over to Njoke to kick us off. Over to you, Njoke.
Thank you so much, Sunera. Thank you so much. Good day, good morning, good day, good morning, wherever part you're connecting. My name is Njoke Tangwing Rise Angwengi, YouthLead Ambassador for Cameroon. And I will take you through youth and climate myths. I come from Cameroon, specifically Bamenda, the northwest region of Cameroon, with the capital city, Bamenda. Next slide, please. All right, next slide, please. Can someone take me through the next slide? Thank you very much. All right, on this slide, we have three pictures. The first slide is a scrap heap in Bamenda, just very close to a hospital, PMI hospital. Now you can imagine the stench that this scrap heap emits every single day. And it's close to a hospital. So it's like coming to a hospital and getting even more ill before you get home. I don't know if I hope you get my point. So the stench that this emits, I mean, not just the stench, the chemicals that this scrap heap emits is appalling. And we have these scrap heaps in over all corners of the town of Bamenda, in Cameroon as well. The next picture on the slide, I'm holding up, this is during a climate advocacy campaign outreach program in Bamenda, which I led. And here I am holding up a sign, climate action, our responsibility. Because climate action needs all hands on deck. And especially as young people who bear the greatest brunt of the climate crisis, we have to have our voices heard. The third picture is me speaking at the Youth for Climate Summit in Italy in 2021, where young people from 196 UN FCCC signatory countries converged with 50 ministers to have their voices heard as far as climate policy is concerned. Now, next slide, please. The next slide, can I get to the next slide? Thank you very much. This is the next slide has three pictures as well. The first picture is a flooded farmland in the northwest region. Can you hear me? Flooded farmland in the northwest region in Bamenda. I mean, whenever it rains heavily, houses are flooded, farmlands are flooded, and the farmers and community dwellers complain. Now, when you get to tell them that this is the climate crisis in action, this is the climate crisis in our faces, they tell you, no, the climate crisis doesn't exist. But unfortunately, we suffer the brunt of it every single day. The second picture is an eroded stream bank. This stream used to be very tiny, but due to the heavy rains, due to the heavy rains, the quantity of water that flows through has increased. So it has eroded the banks of this stream. It's one of the streams in Cameroon. It has eroded the banks of this stream and invaded the farmlands of community dwellers. And the third picture is a picture of fuel wood. This is sold along the road connecting Bamenda town to the capital city. This fuel wood right here depicts the rate of deforestation in the Northwest region. The Bamenda and Geba Forest Reserve, which happens to be the biggest forest reserve, and it served as a huge carbon sink. For the past 6 years now, trees have been cut down, and I think trees are cut down there on a daily basis. And trust me, the effect on the temperature in Bamenda is appalling, because Bamenda used to be a very cold town. Now, Bamenda is actually extremely hot, yet the people do not understand that our human activities fuel the climate crisis. Next slide, please. Now, what then is the climate crisis? What then is climate change? It's a word on the street, on the mouth, in everybody's mouth, in conferences. The person next door knows climate change, but knows the word climate change. But what then is climate change? Now, the climate change refers to long shifts in temperatures and weather patterns. It's as easy as that. And I keep using Bamenda, which is in Cameroon, because we are facing that. Bamenda used to be very, very cold. You would basically not walk around town without maybe a jacket on or a sweater on. But these days, it's extremely hot because of climate change, increase in temperatures. And these shifts may be natural, but what I have here is, since the 1800s, human activities, or better yet, we call it anthropogenic activities, have been the main driver of climate change, primarily due to burning of fossil fuels like oil, gas, which produce heat-trapping gases, better yet, greenhouse gases. Next slide, please. Thank you. What the causes of climate change? Gross deforestation. I mean, I don't think human beings can survive without cutting down trees carpenters use wood every single day. Industries use wood every single day. But when I say gross deforestation, I mean it's unsustainable. The rate of trees which are cut down every single day it's really something which it's worth ringing a bell about, because everybody, in Cameroon here, trees are cut down for farmland, cut down because they want to use the land to construct, or they want to build a school or build a hospital. But people cut down trees without thinking about planting. So in a day, 1,000 trees can be cut. But if you ask the question, how many trees have been planted to replace them? Nobody's going to tell you. Secondly, greenhouse gas emissions. Now, trees serve as carbon sinks. Trees serve as carbon sinks. Basic nature study will tell you that plants take in carbon dioxide and they give out oxygen. But it's unfortunate that the natural machines are cut down on a daily basis, and these gases hover in the atmosphere. And trust me, when they hover in the atmosphere, they're detrimental to the environment and to human health and animals as well. I included a line here. I said the Industrial Revolution was a mixed blessing, because when the Industrial Revolution came, machines replaced human labor. By so doing, production increased, and people got into the using of machine. And if you're in the industrial region of Cameroon, Douala especially, the air is stuffy because there are companies which emit carbon monoxide on a minute basis. And in Douala is the hottest town in Cameroon because of the climate crisis. Now the next, unsustainable production and consumption, and then increasing livestock farming. Cows and sheep produce large amounts of methane. Now, the thing about production or increasing livestock farming is local farmers or local community dwellers have not understood that these gases that are emitted could be recycled and used as cooking gas. So it is just the cow dung, everything is just emitted into the atmosphere, and this obstructs the hydrological cycle. But if we understand that we can recycle these gases, then it's going to be of help to human beings. But because of lack of such ideas, it's left to pollute the atmosphere. I go down to fluorinated gases, which are emitted from ACs, refrigerators. These are household appliances. I think almost every house in Douala, that's the economic capital of Cameroon, uses an AC because of the increased temperature. Now, the fluorinated gases emitted from these ACs and refrigerators go ahead to destroy the environment. Causes of climate change. Next slide, please. Now, the effects of the climate crisis on Cameroon have been devastating over the years, and I quoted a few examples here. Extreme weather, that's extreme weather conditions. The north of Cameroon, the three regions in the north of Cameroon, I think Garoua, Maroua, and Gaoundéré, are extremely hot in the day, and there are storms. And considering that trees serve as windbreaks, because there are no trees, when there is a disaster or a violent wind, I can say the level of disaster is appalling. Now, another effect of the climate crisis is landslides and mudslides. Most recently, I think 2022, there was a landslide in the capital city, which led to the loss of lives and loss of property. And also in Bafoussam. Bafoussam is the first town before you get to Bamenda. It used to be a very cold town, but the temperatures are rapidly increasing because of the climate crisis. And landslides are imminent in that place. In the north of Cameroon, we have droughts. The north of Cameroon is normally very, very dry. But because of the increase, because of the dryness, that prolonged dryness, which are called droughts, this has also led to food insecurity, because farmers now have to plant and then they have to plant about 3 times. But because before, the ground was maybe humid enough to accommodate seeds, but now the problem now is the ground has become so hot it can't accommodate seeds, and plants tend to die. I talk about the floods. Most recently, the last flood in Cameroon, which left the whole country in sorrow, happened in Boya, in the southwest region, in the capital city. It led to the loss of lives and property worth millions. And it might interest you to know that I just left Boya. I spoke at the University of Bamenda a day before this flood. And as I got on the bus, got back to my town, to Bamenda, where there is a war, actually, the next day this flood happened, and it was all over the news. The climate crisis, biodiversity loss as well. My co-ambassador, Mr. Woody, will handle this during his presentation. And then forest degradation, that's destruction of forest cover. Like I said, the Bamenda and Gemba Forest Reserve used to be an amazing carbon sink, but trees are being felled on a minute basis. And because we don't understand, we're exposing ourselves to so many ecological hazards. And then animal and human disease outbreaks, meningitis outbreak. Yeah, there was a meningitis outbreak in Cameroon because of the climate crisis. The cholera outbreak in Cameroon, especially in the north, in the southwest region, there was a cholera outbreak because of the climate crisis. In the southwest region, when you have water, the sources of water drying up, people are left with no choice but to switch to other sources of water, which most times are not clean enough. So when the cholera outbreak happened, I think over 200 deaths were recorded. That's last year, by September last year, all because of the climate crisis. Next slide, please. Oh, yeah, thank you. The consequences of the climate crisis, like I said, I've mentioned here that are very severe for the poorest populations, and because they're disproportionately exposed to hazards such as extreme temperatures and droughts. Now, the level of education in the north of Cameroon is very low. It's about 20%, that area is mostly inhabited by Muslims, or not Muslims, the Bororo community. Yeah, Muslims. And because of some, I don't know, destructive norms, their women are not educated. Most of the women are not educated, and they're left at the mercy of being just regular caregivers. So they bear the greatest brunt of the climate crisis. They're the poorest population. They bear the greatest brunt of the climate crisis. That's extreme temperatures and droughts. Like I mentioned, I've mentioned examples. The Bororo community, young people, that's youth. And then people living with disabilities as well. People living with disabilities also bear the greatest brunt of the climate crisis, especially here in the global south. Cameroon is in the global south, where we have fewer resources and assets and less access to funding, support, and political influence. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, can I? Okay, thank you. Children and youth are the least responsible for climate change. Yes, that's a fact. We're the least responsible for climate change, yet we bear the greatest brunt. That's a fact. I mean, I got a study from The Guardian, which says a global study of 10,000 youth from 10 countries in 2021 found that 50% of young people felt depressed and sad about climate change, while 45% expressed that their lives were negatively affected daily. In Cameroon, in Bamenda, when there are floods, children cannot go to school. When there are floods, children can't go to school, they cannot go to the farm, especially girls. So the climate crisis has a huge blow on young people, especially, even though we didn't cause the crisis, but we can be a part of the solution. And I mentioned that youth have raised and continue to raise awareness on climate change and ways to have their voices heard as far as climate action is concerned, whether at the grassroots level, at national level, and at the international scene as well. Youths are having their voices heard. I mean, you were living under the rock if you've never heard about Greta Thunberg or Vanessa Nakate from Africa here, or Lise Wathuti. These are prominent young leaders who have taken up the responsibility to spread the message across. Next slide, please. Can I get a next slide? Thank you. The next slide here is a depiction. Here we are at the Africa Climate Week, where we shaped the Youth for Capacity Policy document, which was validated at the Youth for Climate event in New York this year, 2022. And the next picture is a group of young people I led during an advocacy campaign here in Bamenda. Now, the Youth for Climate Summit, for the very first time in history, was held in Milan. And it was first of its kind because 400 young delegates from across the globe, by young delegates, I mean climate leaders from across the globe, represented the 196 signatory UNFCCC signatory countries. And this summit gave birth to the Youth for Climate Manifesto, which amplified the voices of young people in the global south and global north as far as climate action was concerned. And it was a foundation document during the COP26 summit in Glasgow, Italy. And then having young people to have pushed the narrative, and the UNFCCC actually has bought the idea. And for the very first time in the history of the United Nations, there was the Youth and Children Pavilion, which was created at COP26 in Egypt, Sharm el Sheikh. Now, I go down to climate myths. The first myth our society has, especially in the global south, especially in my country, is the climate isn't really changing. People tell you that every day. Like as we speak, there's been rain since morning. I mean, since last night, there's been rain. It's incessant. It might continue for like 3 days or 4 days. And people will tell you, no, it's a punishment from deities. And this is the narrative that they propagate. And they don't understand that that's just a myth. They say the Earth's climate has changed before. It's just part of a natural cycle. It's still the climate change, yet people don't understand. That's why it's a myth. And then they say human beings are not responsible. But I mentioned that the climate change is because of anthropogenic activities, whether it's bad farming practices, whether it's the emission of gas, it's all because of humans. They say carbon dioxide is natural and it's essential. It's not a pollutant. Carbon dioxide is natural, of course, but in excess, it's not good. If we're cutting down all the carbon sinks, what becomes of us? And they say the effects of climate change don't exist. They say climate change doesn't exist. Now, I just want one fact. Next slide, please. One fact, climate change actually is a global emergency. Whether in the global north or the global south. The next slide. The world is really warming up at an unprecedented rate. They say the raise to 1.5 degrees centigrade. Are we getting there anytime soon? I don't know. Oxygen is natural. We need it to survive, but it becomes very poisonous in high concentrations. And similarly, carbon dioxide, along with methane gas, nitrous oxide, and other greenhouse gases are heating up the atmosphere. How are we getting our hands on deck? These are the facts about climate change that people refuse to believe. Young people refuse to believe. And I don't know if we want the world to end right now before we get our hands on deck, but I'm just calling on everyone's attention that as young people, especially, we ought to be sustainable. We ought to foster, we ought to have we ought to put our hands on deck, get all stakeholders on deck, whether it's the local government, whether it's the NGOs, different communities, to understand that climate change actually exists and it needs all of us to be on deck to solve the climate crisis. At this point, I'll wrap up my part of the presentation, and it's my honor to introduce my co-presenter, the co-ambassador, Woody, just from Haiti. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Angel, for your brilliant presentation. That was really amazing. And we had the chance to learn a lot from the presentation. Thank you. I say good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. So my name is Woody Just. I'm an agronomist with the concentration in natural resources and environment, and I have a master in environmental and energy management. So I'm also, for this year, international delegate for the COP28 that will be held in Dubai. So today, I'm really have the opportunity to tell you a lot about how climate change is impacting the biodiversity in the Caribbean region, specifically in Haiti. So I believe that, Haiti is a beautiful country with some great natural resources. We have important biodiversity, but unfortunately, we are one of the most vulnerable countries to climate change impacts. So what I think that we as young people, we have to be really engaged in our community, to be some good leaders, to be some solution creators, to really train the people in our environment, in our community, so that we can be solution creators rather than victims. Because I believe that the better world, the better future that we are talking about, it depends on young people. Because to be accurate, the elders who are here today, 10 years after, 20 years after, 30 years after, they won't be there anymore. So that's we, young people, we're gonna face the prediction that they are making today. So we have to be good leaders. We have a part, we have action to make. So this situation really motivate me today to go through the slides to my presentation, just to tell you a lot about, tell you a few about what is climate change, what is biodiversity, how climate change is impacting the biodiversity in the Caribbean region, specifically in Haiti, and what we as young people, as leaders, as change makers, we could do. So I can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so climate change is, when we are talking about, according to IPCC, I need the definition, please. So according to IPCC, climate change is any change that we observe in the temperature and the precipitation. It is during a period of time. It is according to IPCC. So when we are talking about climate change, we are talking about rising sea level. We are talking about, we can click, please, click so that we can see the image, because I have image of everything that I'm saying. Okay, we are talking about rising temperature, rising sea level. So, in this image, as you can see, the sea level is the high, okay, we see the sea level, but we also see 2030. So they predict that in 2030, the sea level would be there, where you see 2030. And they say that in 2050, the sea level would be there. So climate change is also more storm, it is more floodings, it is more droughts. We have another image, that explains a loss of biodiversity. So yeah, so climate change is that. Climate change, when we are talking about climate change, is all the thing that we are talking about. We can go to the next slide, please. We can click again. Okay, this table, as you can see, this table just explains the different threats on the biodiversity in the Caribbean region. And as we can see in red, climate change has a big score of impact. So climate change is impacting the biodiversity in a high level. So we can see now in the next slide. Yeah, now we are going to talking about what is biodiversity. So biodiversity, according to United Nations, it is the variability of living organisms. And we have another definition that we can click, please, to see. Okay, so it is also the ecological complexes of this organism. When we are talking about biodiversity, we are also talking about intra-diversity, and also we are talking about inter-diversity. So biodiversity is forest diversity, it is bird diversity, it is marine biodiversity, diversity, it is plant diversity, and I can say that biodiversity is the diversity of the biological population. You can go, please. Okay. Now, this slide is showing all the species are really endemic to the Caribbean region. So as we can see, the plants is more than 70% of, we have more than 70% of endemic plant in the Caribbean region. For the reptile, it's more than 90%. For the amphibians, all the amphibians that we can find in the Caribbean region, they are endemic. And even though we can say that the vertebrate are not out, doesn't really have a high percentage, but the type of vertebrate that we can find in the Caribbean region, they are really particular. So it's just to say that the biodiversity is really important in the Caribbean region. Now we are going to the next slide to see the biodiversity is really important in age. We can click just click to give, yeah, please, thank you. Okay, according to IPCC, not IPCC, but IUCN, and also we have United Nations, they explain the species is really, or are really important, or are really endemic in Haiti. And we consider Haiti as a hotspot. Like in Haiti, we are going to find some special species, and the species are will endemic, either plant species, either animal species. So they are really important in this country. But unfortunately, as I said, climate change is really impacting this biodiversity. And we are going to see in the next slide, the biodiversity, all climate change can really impact the biodiversity. So here are the threats or impacts of climate change on biodiversity. For example, we know coal. Coal are really important for the environment. They protect us from flooding. We also know mangrove, and they are really important. We find coal in the sea, but you know what? climate change can cause coral bleaching. Coral is really important for fishes because fishes lay in coral. But climate change has a huge impact on coral, like climate change can impact coral in coral bleaching. So we also have mangrove, and as I mentioned, climate change is also rising temperature. So we have a kind of species that can tolerate a sort of level of temperature. So if this year the temperature has a level, and the next year or 2 years after, 2 years next, we can say, we can see that we have rising temperature, and the species couldn't be able to tolerate this kind of level of temperature. And what they will do, they will leave this place. So we have species migration. So for the other species that can't leave this place, they will die. So it is loss of biodiversity. So for the species that can go to another place, so this level of temperature will affect the species, and they will be dying. So we can click to see that climate change is loss of biodiversity, because when we lose some species in the biodiversity, so it is loss of biodiversity. Now the next slide. What we should do. So, okay, it is true that climate change is impacting the environment. Climate change is impacting the biodiversity. But as solution, what we could do. So the answer is action. Or action. We can see all these guys, each of them holds a letter. So if one of them says that, okay, I'm not going to hold my letter anymore, there won't be action. If the man with the letter A says, okay, I'm not going to hold my letter, there won't be action. So everybody has to do his part so that we can have action. But not only this, but each of them must be in the right position. The man with the letter A can say, okay, I'm going to hold my letter, but I'm not going to stand here. I'm just going to place me after the end. But if this man places after the end, there will be action. So not only we have to be there, we have to make action. So we have to do what we have to do, but we have to do it in the right position. So we have to be in a place to make action. So everybody, every ambassadors, every every students, change makers, leaders, we have to be action, because we don't really have another place to live, because we have one planet. We don't have a planet B. So if we really love us, if we love our planet, if we love our children, if we love the children of our children, if we love the next generation, so we have to do something. We have to act really sustainably. So so we don't have another planet. So what I just want to tell you today is, do your best to be really engaged in your community. Do your best to be really very implicated, to bring some good solution so that you can live good impacts, so that you can live, I can say, you can impact positively your community. So that was a good pleasure to talk to you about this, how climate change is impacting the biodiversity. I think that we are not open for questions, and we thank you for paying attention to our presentation. And now I can say that Zunagia, the microphone is yours. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Woody and Njoke, for such an insightful presentation. There were indeed some insightful points, and I'm sure that everybody has something to take away from today's presentation. We're now open for questions and answers. So if anyone has any questions for our two speakers, any feedback or insights that they'd like to share, please feel free to raise your hand or just drop that in the chat, and they will answer your questions there. Yes, I see Benedict. Please go ahead.
Yeah, the question I have to ask is, how can technology advancement enable biodiversity and climate change control global?
Woody, would you like to take that, please? The question is, how can technology help with the effects of biodiversity and climate change? You're on mute, sorry.
So sorry.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that it is true that this century, we know that all technology is really important for human being, for us to in our daily activities. We know technology is really important because right now we are using technology just to be attended in this manner. So, but you know that in some places, for example, they cut down trees just to build some infrastructures. They cut down trees, uh, I mean, to develop technology. I mean, we have a lot of not only trees, but also we have other natural resources that we destroy to develop technology. It is sure that it is important. It is sure that we need technology to live, to move, to develop our country. But if we can do it in a way so that we can, by developing the technology and also we can protect our natural resources, we can protect our environment to be better because we know that lots of companies, they emit CO2 in the atmosphere. So we know our CO2 can really affect the environment because it is a greenhouse gas. So when we are talking about climate change, we are talking about the impact of greenhouse gas because the warming global that we are talking, the global warming that we are talking is close to greenhouse gas. So when we are developing our countries, when we are developing the technology and we don't really pay attention to the impact that the technology can have on the nature, the climate, so it is a bad thing. So while we are developing the technology, we also have to think about how we can preserve how we can conserve our planet. Because as I said, we don't really have another planet to live. So if we are developing the technology like this, but we don't control it, we are going to leave this planet for the technology. So we are going to leave this planet for the industries that we have, for the companies that we have, for the cars that we have, and we're gonna die. So we have to really take control of what we are doing so that we can, while we are developing the technology, and also we preserve the natural resources, we preserve the climate, we conserve the planet, we protect the planet, the climate. That's all for me.
Thank you so much, Woody. Next question is for Njoke. Is the government of Cameroon doing anything to address those climate crises that you're seeing in your areas right now?
Well, to a certain extent, it is. But I would say not as much as we want it to be because, not as much as we want it to be because I mentioned that the climate change is a global emergency. And it's unfortunate that they're not putting as much energy as they should. They're addressing it, yes, but they're not putting in as much energy as they should. I think local NGOs, community-based organizations are doing the best. Faith-based organizations are getting involved as well. Government, yes, but not as much as we want. Or not as much as it's expected.
Next question is from Kakiria. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. Your question is, apart from tree plantation, what are some activities that we can do to fight climate change?
I mentioned switching to alternative sources of income, of energy. For example, solar energy. Solar energy, realize that when it comes to greenhouse gas emissions, solar energy is void of that. Solar energy is eco-friendly. Solar energy is very eco-friendly. If people can switch to alternative sources of income of energy as that, and also enable recycling, because we realize that ocean pollution, the pollution of the ocean is majorly because of the fact that there are no systems put in place, no waste disposal systems put in place, and the plastics go as far as destroying marine life. If systems can be set up to, if systems could be set up to enable recycling of plastics, maybe for recycling of plastics, that will be good. That will be good as well. That will help to reduce the rate of climate change at the local level. And then yeah, I guess these are the two that came on top of my head.
Okay. And Woody, you mentioned that you are participating in COP, and there is a question around bringing disadvantaged youth on board. So could you maybe mention a few replicable youth interventions or any platforms where the disadvantaged youth can come on board?
I'm so sorry, can you repeat again, please?
The question is, how can we bring disadvantaged youth on board, leaving no one behind? Are there any replicable youth interventions?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that question. As I mentioned, I'm an international youth delegate for COP 2028. So it is a program that they have for today to really integrate young people in decision making about climate. We know that I can say every year, at the end of each year, we have this summit, we have this conference. It's about the decision that governments in each countries are, decision that they are making for a better rate to protect really the climate. So they have a program to really integrate the young people. And me as delegate, I do understand the world of young people in a better rate, in a better future as a nation. And me, I'm working in my community, I'm working in Haiti, and I'm working with some young people, and I'm conducting some community projects with them. So I'm considering me like for this conference, I will consider me like a transporter. When I say it like this, I will advocate for the young people, the vulnerable young people in my community, because I'm working with them. We have some of them who don't really know what is climate. When we ask them, okay, what do you know about climate? They don't really know it. Even, do believe, do see that? Can you imagine that climate change is impacting us, and they are impacted by the climate change, right? They don't know what is climate. So me, what I will do, I will advocate for them. I will make you their voice. I will make people know that, okay, we have some young people, specifically in Haiti, who don't even know what is climate. And the input that I will get from this conference, I'm sure that I will share it with them to just create, when I say with them, with the vulnerable people, or young people in my community, in my country, so that I can be sure that I create a good generation of leaders who can be really aware of climate change impacts. So, like this, they could be really engaged in the community and bring some solution. It is true that all of them, they are not really, they could be able to participate in this conference, but me, I'll be like a transporter for me. I will take for them, and I will bring back to them what I get from this conference, so that I can really, I can say, strengthen their capacity. I can empower them in climate, so that it can be really equipped to conduct really good action in their community. So that's like this that I consider the vulnerable people in my community. So I will take for them, and I will bring to them what I've learned from this conference, to be, so that I can really engage in their community, to bring good solutions, so that as I mentioned, it could be good creators, solution creators, rather than victims. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Woody. We'll take one last question. I see a hand raised. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, thank you for the wonderful opportunity. And it's been an insightful session. And my question is this, because I do lead a youth-led climate change program. And why should, I'm going to ask, like, why should young people really care? Because Riza stated, it means like we, the young people are supposed to like maybe like bear the brunt and whatever thing that comes with the climate change. I want to understand because the way in which we're communicating climate change is like we're going to die tomorrow, like anything can happen tomorrow. How can we best communicate climate change to young people in such a way that they see the positivity and everything that comes with the change and how they can take positive action towards it, not like talking about climate change as we are dying the next day. And how can we incorporate coaching, climate coaching into whatever thing we're doing, especially when it comes to engaging young people in the climate change, in the climate action journey?
So I don't know if I can answer. So what I think from this question is one of the things which is sure is we are living the impacts of climate change. So everybody is facing the impacts. For example, right now in Haiti, I mean, the temperature, I mean, Haiti is a tropical country. And for this month, the temperature is really high. So we are living the impacts. Some of them, I mean, are joking and say, okay, probably we have the sun, probably it is, I mean, too near us. That's why we feel so hot. No, we feel we had this in this month. I mean, we have to take a bath really frequently because it's too high for us, the temperature. But you know what? While we are living the impact, some of them, as I mentioned, don't know that it is climate changes. It is climate change impact. So what I think is, okay, or are we going, what the best method to engage the people in this movement, the movement of climate activism? So we first have to focus on the impact to make them know this fact is an impact of climate change. As Andrew said, it's not a myth. We are living a climate change. It's a reality. So, okay, you didn't know that the person, I mean, for example, in my country, the farmers, they are facing the climate change impacts. They lose their crops because the way that, I mean, in the years before we have to receive rain in our country, it's changed now. But they don't really know what happened. They just see the change, but they don't know what happened. But it's up to us. I mean, it's up to young people to train them, to make them aware of the impact, to let them know that, okay, this change that you're observing now is the climate change impact. So I can say that once they know, okay, that's the impact of climate change, probably they will ask you, but okay, it is climate change impacts, but what we should do? What we should do to mitigate this problem? What we should do to adapt in this situation? So the fact that you are trained, you know, okay, what good decision to make, what we should do to be to adapt in this situation, will help them to understand as human beings, even though we also have I mean, a part in this change. This is what behavior that you should have. This is what you should do. As Andrew said, try to use green energy. Try, if you are traveling, if you can use a public bus, try to use it. Okay, today just leave your car home and take a public bus. Like this, you will participate in reducing the climate, I mean, the CO2 emission. So try to do this. If you are probably you are not using the light, just turn it off. Like this, you know that you as person, as human, you are participating in reducing the impacts of climate change. It is true that you by yourself, you can change the situation because the climate change is real. we can't really do it. But if we just like, I can say that, just implicate this in the schools, the universities, so that when we are living, we know that, okay, we are living the impacts, but we have to do our best to change this. And the fact that we know, okay, it is a right for us to have a better bread. It is a right for us to have a better future. Like this, we're gonna be sure to have a good behavior. So that first we can be trained, and then we have also to make really good action in our community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Woody. I see there is one more hand raised, but unfortunately we're at time, so we have to wrap up now. I've dropped both our speakers' contact details in the chat, so if you'd like to get in touch and know more about their work, you can contact them there. Thank you so much once again, Woody and Njoke, for sharing your knowledge and for such a good presentation. Thank you for everybody for joining in and being an active audience. We look forward to seeing you back soon. This is one of the many leadership presentations that we have lined up. If you'd like to know more about the YouthLead platform, you can go to the link I have put in the chat and find out more about the work that we are doing. We will also have another presentation by more of our YouthLead ambassadors in the coming weeks. So go to the platform and get your updates from there, and we encourage you to keep joining in those presentations as well. We look forward to seeing you in our events as well. And if you'd like to contribute to the platform, there's an option for you to register there as well. Thank you so much once again for joining today, and the recording of this will be available on the YouthLead platform as well. Thank you so much and take care.